Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is an explosive, behind-the-scenes account, pieced together from confidential sources and long-whispered society rumors, now given startling credence by alleged fresh insights from none other than Chelsy Davy, Prince Harry's vivacious former flame. Her reported observations paint a devastating picture of a once carefree prince becoming increasingly isolated under Meghan Markle's alleged pervasive control, leaving his oldest and closest friends worried, sick, and utterly helpless. The gilded cages of London's high society and the sun-drenched, seemingly idyllic hills of Montecito were abuzz today with whispers that had finally, it seemed, found a voice, and not just any voice. Chelsy Davy, the Zimbabwean-born businesswoman who once captured Prince Harry's heart and shared nearly 7 years of his youth, a woman known for her independent spirit and fierce loyalty, is now reportedly at the center of a new storm of revelations concerning her famous ex. This isn't about rekindled romance or old jealousies. This, sources close to Chelsy insist, is about genuine, heartfelt concern from a woman who knew a very different Harry, a Harry who, she and his old guard of friends allegedly believe, has been systematically isolated and fundamentally changed by the woman he married. For years, the narrative has been carefully managed. Harry, liberated from the stuffy confines of royalty by his progressive American wife, finally finding his true self. But according to these explosive new claims, attributed to Chelsy through a tight-knit circle of mutual acquaintances who are no longer willing to stay silent, the reality is far more troubling. They allege that Meghan Markle's influence, far from being liberating, has been one of subtle but relentless control, a silken web that has gradually cut Harry off from his past, his friends, and even, some whisper, his own better judgment. Chelsy never stopped caring about Harry, not really. A source, described as a lifelong friend of both Harry and Chelsy, reportedly confided to a well-connected society columnist. It's not romantic. It's the kind of deep affection you hold for someone who was a massive part of your formative years. And what she's seen, what all of Harry's old crew have seen, has left them worried sick. It's like watching someone slowly disappear. The old crew, a boisterous, loyal collective of Eton schoolmates, army buddies, and society figures who grew up alongside Harry, once formed his unshakable support system. They were the ones who understood the unique pressures of his life, the ones he could truly be himself with, away from the glare of public duty. But since Meghan's arrival, and particularly since the move to California, that circle has reportedly shrunk dramatically, not by Harry's own organic drifting, but through what many perceive as Meghan's strategic culling. It wasn't overt, not at first. The source continued, their voice laced with a mixture of sadness and frustration. It started subtly. Invitations to Harry for old friends' gatherings would go unanswered, or be politely declined with vague excuses about commitments. Phone calls wouldn't be returned as promptly. Slowly but surely, the lines of communication began to fray, and many of us felt Meghan was the one holding the scissors. Chelsy Davy, who famously attended Harry and Meghan's wedding, looking somewhat melancholic, is said to have noticed the shift early on. She saw the signs, another acquaintance, who claims to have spoken with Chelsy recently, alleged. Meghan is incredibly charming, incredibly intelligent, and, let's be frank, incredibly adept at getting what she wants. Chelsy apparently remarked to a friend after the wedding that Harry seemed different already, a little less himself, a little more managed. The alleged control wasn't necessarily about overt demands or ultimatums, though whispers of those exist too. It was, according to these sources, more insidious, a gradual reprogramming of Harry's social landscape, a subtle steering away from anyone or anything that didn't fit Meghan's vision for their new life, or anyone who might offer a dissenting voice or a reminder of his past loyalties. Think about it. The first source elaborated. Harry's friends, his real friends, are largely from a world that Meghan either doesn't understand or, frankly, seems to disdain: the British aristocracy, the military tradition. They represent everything she ostensibly wanted Harry to escape. But in liberating him, many feel she's actually just swapped one cage for another, albeit one with better weather and more celebrity neighbors. One particularly painful anecdote, now circulating with renewed vigor in light of Chelsy's reported concerns, involves one of Harry's oldest and most loyal friends, Tom Skippy Inskip, Skippy, who had been a rock for Harry through some of his wildest and most difficult years, reportedly voiced gentle concerns to Harry about the whirlwind pace of his romance with Meghan. The result? Skippy and his wife were allegedly frozen out, conspicuously absent from the evening reception of the royal wedding.
That Skippy incident was a huge red flag for Chelsy and the others,
the acquaintance claimed.
If Harry could be turned against someone as loyal and central to his life as Skippy,
simply for offering a word of caution, then no one was safe. It signaled that Meghan's influence was already paramount, and that any perceived criticism of her, however mild or well-intentioned, would not be tolerated. Harry, the man who once valued loyalty above all else, was suddenly enforcing a new, Meghan-centric loyalty test. The isolation, these friends allege, has only intensified since the move to Montecito.
It's not just the physical distance,
the lifelong friend explained. It's a complete cultural and emotional detachment. Harry used to be the life and soul, the first one to organize a get-together, the one who'd call just to check in. Now? Silence. Or, if there is contact, it's stilted, almost guarded, like he's afraid of saying the wrong thing, or like someone else might be listening. Chelsy, who has built a successful jewelry business and a life far removed from royal drama, is said to be particularly saddened by this perceived transformation.
She remembers the Harry who was fun,
who was mischievous, who had this incredible ability to connect with anyone from any walk of life, her acquaintance shared. The Harry she sees now in media appearances often looks tense, strained, almost like he's performing a role, and it breaks her heart, because she knows that's not the real him, or at least not the him she knew and loved as a friend. The worried sick sentiment isn't just about Harry missing out on a few parties or rugby matches. It's a deeper concern about his overall well-being, his happiness, and his connection to his own identity. They worry he's lost his anchor, the source said.
Meghan is his whole world now.
And while that's romantic in theory, it's dangerous in practice when it means severing ties with everyone who knew you before. What happens if that one anchor falters? There are whispers, too, of Meghan allegedly monitoring Harry's communications, of subtly discouraging relationships she deems unhelpful or negative influences. While impossible to verify without direct confirmation, these rumors feed into the narrative of a prince increasingly under his wife's thumb.
It's the little things,
the friend mused. The way he parrots her phrases, the way his public statements started to sound less like Harry and more like a Californian self-help guru. The almost complete absence of his old friends from any of their Netflix content and his book, Spare, unless they were being used to bash the royal family. It all points to a very deliberate reshaping of Harry's world, orchestrated by Meghan. Chelsy Davies' own life choices stand in stark contrast. She married hotelier Sam Cutmore Scott in a private ceremony, has a child, and maintains a relatively low public profile, focusing on her business, Aya. Her reported concerns about Harry, therefore, are not seen as a ploy for attention, but as genuine disquiet from someone who has successfully navigated a life after a royal romance, retaining her independence and her own circle.
She looks at Harry,
and perhaps she sees what could have been her life if she'd stayed, and she's probably thanking her lucky stars she got out, one society observer commented. But that doesn't mean she doesn't feel for him. There's a sense among those who knew them both that Chelsy was too wild, too independent for the royal cage, and in a way, Meghan was too. But Meghan chose to try and reshape the cage to her liking, with Harry as her primary instrument. The alleged isolation isn't just social. Friends worry it's also intellectual and emotional.
Harry used to have robust debates.
He'd listen to different viewpoints, the lifelong friend recalled. Now, it seems he's in an echo chamber, surrounded only by people who affirm Meghan's worldview. That's not healthy for anyone, let alone someone who has experienced the kind of trauma and upheaval Harry has. The fear amongst this old guard is that Harry, in his eagerness to protect Meghan and build a new life, has allowed himself to become a prisoner of a different kind, a prisoner of a singular, all-consuming relationship that has demanded the sacrifice of his past.
They worry that one day he'll wake up and realize what he's lost.
Who he's lost, and it will be too late, the source said somberly.
Meghan is a force of nature.
No doubt. But sometimes even forces of nature can be destructive if they're not tempered with other perspectives, other loyalties. Of course, supporters of Harry and Meghan will dismiss these claims as sour grapes from jilted exes and an out-of-touch aristocracy, resentful of Meghan for freeing Harry. They will argue that it's natural for friendships to evolve and change when one gets married and moves continents. But the consistency of the whispers, now reportedly given weight by Chelsy Davies' private concerns, is becoming harder to ignore. This isn't just one disgruntled friend. It's a chorus of voices, all singing a similar, mournful tune about a prince they feel has been lost to them, not through natural drifting, but through a deliberate and strategic isolation, masterminded by the woman who vowed to be his partner. Chelsy wouldn't be saying these things, even privately to friends, if she didn't feel it was serious, her acquaintance insisted. She's not one for gossip. She's fiercely private herself. But the love for Harry, the old Harry, runs deep. And when you see someone you care about heading down a path that looks so lonely, so cut off, you can't help but be worried sick. They all are. They just hope, before it's truly too late, that Harry himself starts to see it too. The narrative of Meghan's alleged control and Harry's resulting isolation, now reportedly echoed by Chelsy Davies, adds another complex, troubling layer to the ongoing Sussex saga. It shifts the focus from their battles with the palace and the press to the very dynamics of their own relationship, questioning whether Harry's freedom has come at too high a personal cost. As the whispers grow louder, fueled by those who knew him best and longest, the world watches and wonders, is Prince Harry truly liberated? Or has he merely exchanged one form of gilded cage for another? This one built for two, but with only one person truly holding the key? The concern from his oldest friends, a concern that has them worried sick, suggests a far more complicated, and perhaps far more tragic, reality than the Montecito fairy tale allows.